the turn, I don't mind checking. But if I'm going to be betting my bottom pairs and my draws, then I think it makes sense to bet with this. Looks like I'm considering a check raise, which is obviously a little bit thin. It depends kind of how he plays aces on the flop. But for this to work out for value, especially over two streets, he not only has to have, he has to play his hand this way with, I guess, a jack, potentially a 3 or 2, but those are pretty rare. I think he would just check back the turn again, although I'm not sure. But those are the hands I beat. Obviously, my ace 6 is not going to beat any other aces. Anyways, I think this is too ambitious to check raise. I don't know whether I did it or not, but first of all, he has to have a showdown value worse hand, which is rare that he would play it this way. I think a jack he might, and 3 or 2 he might. But not only does he have to have a hand like that, but he has to not improve on the river to 2 pair, which would be a disaster. Or if he improves to a straight or a flush or something, or even if those cards, like a 4 of clubs hits, and I don't really know what to do. But yeah, not only does he have to not improve and have those hands, but he also has to pay me off. And I think I'm actually just much better off check calling here once I've checked. I do prefer just betting twice. I think it works better. I think it's kind of equal in a vacuum, but I think it works better for my range. And I actually don't think that I'm being that tricky here by check calling. I do check raise. I don't like it. I think it's just too fancy and it's not going to accomplish much. So I 3-bet on the left table with 10-4 suited. I can certainly call a min raise with 10-4 suited, and like I was saying before, I have a little I kind of went back and forth on how I wanted to construct my 3-betting range, because normally against 3x raises I would use my strongest hands that I couldn't call with to 3-bet with, but in this case my strongest hands that I can't call with are pretty darn weak. So I didn't want to be building huge pots with 8-4 offsuit. So I took some hands like this that didn't play super well, although I could call with them, and then obviously I took some stronger hands, and I think I found it seemed like a lot of the hands that he was using to 3-bet bluff with, quote unquote, were Queen X type hands, just like Queen 6, King X, because I guess they play okay in a single raise pot, but they play decent in a 3-bet pot, and in that they can flop top pair, and more importantly, I think they have a blocker to they have a blocker to some of the 4-betting hands. Oh, that's the other point, is on the right table, that last hand where I went for the check raise on the turn, I have to worry about allowing him the opportunity to build a bigger pot with either a bluff, semi-bluff, or stronger hand than mine. So I really dislike my turn check raise there. I'm try to stop pausing as much because we have a lot of footage, and we're not moving too quickly. So on the left table, I'm deciding if I want to bet again. I just think that although I do see him calling flop with a lot of ace-high, king-high type hands, and I do, see my outs being live against some hands like that, or if he has a 7, I have 3 10 outs. But honestly, this is one of the weakest hands in my range in terms of equity, so I think that I can just comfortably give up and not feel bad about it, to give up with a basically no equity hand. And on the right table, I'm facing a bet on 2-3-3. Looks like I'm going to start the match out aggressive. I think that, you can kind of go different ways on how you want to play these boards, but I definitely like the approach that I took here to start off by fighting and see what he does about it and kind of keep him on his heels. I think that developing a dynamic early in a match is important. On the left table, I don't bluff the ace. I think he, first of all, has aces far too often, given the way the hand played out. I think it's very likely he has an ace. And second of all, I just don't think he necessarily folds a queen or a 7, or even king high when the ace hits, at least all the time, because he can expect me to use that as a bluff card. And I will use it occasionally, but not usually. Especially just when aces are so prevalent in his range. So on the right table, I opt to continue. I was trying to decide if he bet calls flop with ace high or with king high, and I think the answer is no, but I don't really know. So I thought I was facing a lot of 2x, like 7-7, 3x, a reasonable amount of the time, and then 4-5, 4-6, 5-6, potentially ace-5. He might play this way. And I guess I thought that against the weaker parts of his range, like the gutters, I just expect him to fold right now, and I get to win the pot. I know that I have the best hand, but he's not going to let me get to showdown if he has 6 high. I guess I can also, if he does have a hand like sevens, I have my 6 outs, plus the king is a reasonable scare card. He probably would be check calling a lot of his king x hands in this spot rather than using them to check raise. He'd take. I don't really know. So, kind of if you're watching, you can correct me about your ranges. I'd appreciate it. But yeah, I think he doesn't expect me necessarily to play the same way as him, so I can definitely have a king in my range here. And probably, given the circumstances, would feel compelled to bet twice for value. And he goes ahead and folds the turn. I'm curious how many of his 3x hands he would 3-bet the flop with. My inclination is not many. So I could have, walked into a slow play there pretty easily, but fortunately I didn't. And on the left table, check, check, flop. I have third pair, good kicker. I have to bet the turn, it looks like. I think that I like this turn bet, as I like to bet with this as part of my range for the reasons I talked about earlier with the 8-5, but in order to do this with my range, I need to not be check raising the ace-6 of hearts on the other table earlier. Not only because it's a bad vacuum play, but because it messes with this range quite a bit. Really hurts it. Offsuit queen on the river, I think there's certainly no value that I see. I could get called by worse, but I think more often than not, if I bet, I'm called by better. I do think he would show down his 7x and 4x hands. I would expect him to in this spot, so I think I can check and hope it gets checked through. If not, I don't expect him to have a ton of value betting hands on the river unless he had like an ace queen, king queen, queen 9, and I guess ace king. Or hit 2-pair with the queen. Anyways, I think I just have to check fold until he shows me that he's turning, bottom pair into bluffs here, and yeah, he checked back with, I assume, either ace high or low pair, probably a low pair. Yeah, a worse 7. On the right table, I check back with bottom pair, and my backdoor flush draw. Now I've picked up a flush draw on the turn, and it looks like I'm going to check back again. I think that's kind of the standard. If somebody is not check raising turns, I think you just, obviously, nobody's never check raising turns, but if somebody's not check raising many turns, I think that you can't really go wrong betting with a hand like this with some showdown value and some equity, just kind of as a protection bet. And if you do get called, you have some backup equity. I did fear that he could check raise some turns, though, especially because he shouldn't expect me, or I thought he would not expect me to check back many flush draws. So he can kind of check raise here with a wide-ish value and bluff range. Board pairs, and I have a 10 high flush now, which is the 4th nut flush. He bets. I think I just have to call based on, where I'm at in my range and the way the hand played out. But yeah, I do. I was trying to think if I was going to bet if check too, and I think I probably would. I don't expect him to go too crazy with bluff check raises the way the hand played out, because it is actually very likely that I show up. Since I likely had showdown value to check back twice, or I think he would think I do, I don't turn a lot of those hands into bluffs since I have showdown value. So if I'm betting, it's because I improved either to, probably not a boat, given that I didn't bet earlier, but to an ace high or king high flush, since my no pair showdown value hands are ace high and king high. So I think I would have bet, not fearing many check raises. Given that he bet, I'm leaning towards a call now. but I don't feel too strongly about it. If I had an in-game read or didn't feel like he was bluffing in this spot, I really don't mind a fold. It looks like that's what I was thinking. Nope. Changed my mind based on my range, and it looks like he was check raising turn. So I avoided losing a little more money there, potentially. Standard check call on the left table for me. Not a whole lot to talk about. And I don't think we want to bet the river for value or for more as a bluff. Looks like I'm toying with the idea, but no, not really. Right table, we check down. I don't mind leading the turn, but I just think we get called too often. Our equity's too poor. It looks like I opt to turn queen high into a bluff. I don't love this. I think I do face potentially some bluff raises occasionally, but it's just too often that he finds a call with something. And for me to have a hand I really want to value bet, like the stronger parts of my range, I don't think that I'd be checking turn with 5-6, or he wouldn't expect me to. And so that means that to have a hand I'm willing to value bet, it's probably a hand that was going to check raise turn. Okay, so obviously ace 10, ace 8, jack 9, 9 6, and sets, but that's not that wide of a range. And the reason, the problem is, yes, I would certainly value bet 7 8, 10 7, ace 5, but I think he would usually expect me to lead the turn with those hands because they're not quite strong enough to check raise. And I think he would expect me to prefer to just value bet twice with those kind of, not thin, but thin to put in 3 bets. That being, the turn check raise and the river bet. So I do think that there's just not a very wide range of hands that I have here that's value betting, other than, the hands I mentioned, and then, 7-4, 8-4, ace-4, potentially, although I think he'd expect me to bet ace-4. Anyways, I don't like my bluff, and I think I can just give up on the hand. But he folded. Probably a better hand than mine, I would think, but not necessarily. And I pulled up the hand on the left table. I won't go back to it, but on the king queen 3 board, he c-bet 8-6, no backdoor, and gave up after that. And so that tells me that he is betting some kind of hopeless hands on high card boards, and I think that's definitely fine as the preflop raiser against somebody who's 3-betting a lot. Although